Hello, friends, and welcome back to Radio NIGP. Thank you for joining us for this month's episode entitled Loyalty to the Profession, Recruiting and Retention. Last month, we touched on loyalty to the profession as differing from loyalty to your agency, staff, or leadership, especially when those components change periodically. Does loyalty to the profession help you make the right decisions? This month, we will look at bringing on the right people with the right skills. Many friends who are supervisors tell stories about how difficult it has been these past few years to find good people. The definition of good has changed from do they have procurement experience and are they certified to are they a good fit as far as attitude and can we train them to do procurement. Expectations of employees have also changed since COVID, and many folks are expecting to remain working from home. We'll look at some data on employment trends and what kind of questions both sides should consider asking in an interview. We should never sell ourselves short, and sometimes we may even need to go sideways to move up. That can be within the same organization or moving to another across town or across the country. One of our members will discuss leaving her organization for that growth opportunity and then returning some years later. And then there is retention. What are we doing to keep our current staff from leaving? After all, isn't the grass sometimes greener on the other side? Are we supporting the personal growth of our staff through specific projects, shadowing, or other types of training? How about attracting new members to our chapters and the growth opportunities they provide through meetings, workshops, conferences, and volunteering? And finally, we will even touch on some new professional development initiatives from NIGP. So get comfortable and listen up, because there's a whole lot of good information on the way. Hello, NIGP listeners out there. This is David Nash with Radio NIGP, and I'm here with this month's Hot Topics with Kevin Yin, Don Buffum, and Tara Acton. And today we're going to talk a little bit about promotions and moving within agencies, across agencies, outside your agency. And I'm going to kick us off here with a story I remember years ago when I worked at the police department in Fort Lauderdale. And I had a woman coming down the hall or something. I saw her and she was kind of, looking unhappy and her shoulders were drooping. And I always like to say hello to people. I said, "Hi, what's going on?" And she says, "Oh, I need more money. I'd like to get promoted." And one of the responsibilities of my office was posting the job notifications for the week. Now, this was a Monday on the personnel board outside of my office. So I took her over. I said, "Oh, I just saw a job posted there you might be interested in." She got all excited. She goes over and she starts reading the notice, and her shoulders start dropping again. And I said, "What's the matter?" And she said, "Well, it's not here in the police department. I'd have to go over to Parks." I said, "Well, it's the same agency. You're not going to lose." And we had our own defined pension plan and everything. "Oh, I can't leave the police department." And so I kind of, okay, it's kind of like the old lead a horse to water and you can't make them drink kind of thing. So Kevin, what do you think about this whole topic that we're on today?
Well, ultimately, I think we're in control of our own destiny, and that for that example there, we play the victim of I'm stuck, right? I want to be here. But if you're in control of your destiny, what I would urge you to do is look at what are your plans? What are your goals for the next 2 to 4 years, right? And then think of what it is that you need to do to reach that goal. And if you need help, reach out to any colleague members that you trust, and have a conversation and really dig into understanding why you're staying where you are or why you want to move. Because ultimately, you never want to be the victim, because if you're a victim, you're no longer the master of your destiny.
Right.
And that's the important thing to remember. Understand where you want to be and how will you get there. And if you need help, reach out to a trusted colleague. Don, what do you think?
I think you're exactly right. I mean, the decision, everybody wants more money, more responsibility, a perfect life. But the decision to move or to change jobs is something you got to look at everything around you. I stayed in one place for like 26 years, but it was because I had a good boss that helped me and urged me to get trained and certified and allowed me to be involved in NIGP, NASPA, whatever. But also, it went beyond that. We had family, young family, and they were growing up, and we wanted to be able to keep them in the same schools through high school. So that, made it so that we didn't want to move out of the area. I probably could have moved to another state and made more money, but we had to look at what was important to us, and those are the things that were important to us. That my job was good. I enjoyed going to work there, and I always tell people, think about, if you're going to change, what's the worst it could be compared to the worst where you are now. And the other thing is that a lot of people say, I need more money. I need more, like Dave, you're talking about, I need more money. Money motivates for a very short period of time. But once you've been there about 6 months, that extra $100, $200, $300 a month you were supposed to be making is all of a sudden lost in the bills. So you've got to look at your circumstances, your pension, whether your pension in one place will transfer to another. Those are all things you got to consider before you move. Tara, how about yourself? What do you think?
It's interesting hearing you guys talk through all of this, because I'm a believer that you're in control of your own destiny. I also don't think the grass is always greener on the other side. And so it's greenest where you water it. But there is something to be said for, quote unquote, moving to move up. But I think everything you just talked about, Dawn, you need to know what's important to you and why. And so for the example you gave, Dave, maybe there was a really compelling reason that person needed to stay in that location. I'm not judging them, but if somebody were coming to me with those situations, I'd challenge them. And I'd say, is it just because you're comfortable here? Is it just because you have friends here? You like the parking space or something? Well, then I challenge you to get outside of your comfort zone, because if you want to grow within your profession, you're going to have to take risks from time to time. Maybe that risk is within your agency. Maybe that risk is moving across the state or the country, or I know Kevin's moved a few times. I've moved. And I think if the motivation is there, if you're not running away from something, you're likely to be successful if you move. If you're just running away from something and you're not really looking at what you strategically, where you want to go, then absolutely consider moving. I think the interesting things here are, when you're interviewing for a job for a move, I made a huge move. I moved 300 and something miles away from my family. I didn't have my family ties in Tucson. I didn't move thinking eventually I'd come back and I'd grow and come back to the county, but it's where I've ended up. And I think anyone that I've seen have major changes, fast progression within their career, they've taken a risk in some way. I took a risk. I moved across the state. I've moved back to the county. I don't know that I'll be here forever. As a matter of fact, I've told my boss I will not be here forever, but I have no idea what my next move will look like. But I've always been strategic in that. And that would be my caution, is know what's important to you. And if you've got a young family and maybe you've got older parents that you want to be there to help take care of, those are all factors that determine where you're going to be happiest. To Don's point, you look and say, what's the worst that could happen where I'm going? What's the worst that could happen where I'm at? And I think that comes down to using the interview process as an applicant to really try to determine what's good in that area. Are you going to a culture that you feel like you'll be supportive? Do you know people that are working in that organization? I think those are all things that matter from an individual standpoint. But I also think, before we wrap up, I kind of want perspective from you guys. As people who have interviewed people coming into jobs, is there something that scares you about somebody making a big transition, maybe near you, not maybe necessarily physically moving, but moving from one agency to another or one position to another? Are there things that have scared you or that you've been nervous about as the interviewer? in those decisions, and things that you might want to consider from the standpoint of hiring somebody that you might want to look at?
Yeah, I always asked in a not necessarily direct way, roundabout way, what their motivation was for moving. Sometimes it's just a matter of, oh, I'm ticked off at my boss and I'm out of here. I remember one person I interviewed when I was running the supply room at the police department years ago, and she was tired of being on the road. She was delivering for one of these cracker companies, filling vending machines all day long, and she lived in the county, in the same county that Fort Lauderdale was in, but she was working for a private company. And I just liked her attitude. She was humorous. She was alive, And I said, well, that's coming here to work in a warehouse environment is this is perfect. You got steady hours, and you're not out there on the street and putting your back in danger and on and off the truck and everything. So that was one of the things I always asked was, what's your motivation wanting to come work for me? How about you, Kevin?
Well, I've always, for me, it's always about hiring the talent, right? And I don't look at, oh, this is a stepping stone for somebody. It's always a stepping stone for somebody, right? And so, but if I could have that talent for a year, for 2 years, maybe 3, I'm doing really well, right? Because I get to have that person's talent embedded into what our processes and whatever it is that we're doing to improve it, right? So for me, it's always about what are they going to be able to add to what we're having, what's going on right now, and that's the more important to me than that they may be short-lived in a particular.
Yes.
And so I remember back when I was at the city of Portland hiring an attorney to be on my team, and great credentials. And the person, I mean, I've had my boss said, I don't think that we should hire this person because they're just gonna leave. You're not gonna have them for very long. And I said, but you know what? The period that I have this person on the team, they're going to contribute greatly to our success. Yes. And that's going to be important to me. And the funny thing is, that person is still there.
Oh, cool.
So it's you don't know, right?
Yeah, there's no tea leaves.
Yeah, I would say hire for the talent, and not look so much at their where they've been, because sometimes they haven't found the right place, and you might be that right place for them, right?
Yeah.
And even if you're not, you're the right place for a period of time, right?
That's right.
Don, do you have any thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I think you guys have all hit it on the head, and more than anything else, just be yourself and know where you're going, both as an interviewer and an interviewee. But I think we just wrap this up and see you next week.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, Kirk Buffington with Radio NIGP and co-host of one of the Legally Speaking segments. Today, I thought we'd talk just a little bit about what's going on in the employment sector, and particularly with government procurement. Now, we know public sector procurement plays a vital role in ensuring the efficient allocation of public funds and resources. However, in recent years, post-pandemic, all agencies have faced challenges in finding and retaining procurement experts. I'd like to explore the differences between the strong job reports that we hear in the national news and the difficulties faced by agencies in this sector in recruitment and retention. Additionally, we'll examine the alignment of job seekers' desire to work remotely while they face mandatory requirements from agencies to be present in the workplace. Strong job reports over the last 2 quarters indicate a healthy employment sector and a growing demand for skilled professionals. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the employment of procurement specialists is projected to grow 5% from 2020 to 2030, which is as fast as the average for all occupations. These job reports reflect the increasing importance of procurement government operations and the need for qualified experts to manage the procurement process effectively and efficiently. However, despite the positive job outlook that we see, government agencies are experiencing difficulties in finding and retaining procurement experts. Several factors, I believe, contribute to these challenges. Firstly, the retirement of senior professionals with extensive experience leaves a gap that is difficult to fill. Secondly, private sector competition for procurement talent often offers more attractive compensation packages, limiting the pool of available candidates. And lastly, bureaucratic complexities and lengthy hiring processes within government agencies can deter potential candidates. But we also have to deal with the dichotomy of the remote workplace versus mandatory workplace requirements. In recent years, the desire for remote work has gained significant traction among job seekers. The flexibility and work-life balance it offers are appealing to professionals across various industries. However, this desire for remote work may present challenges in the government procurement sector, where the mandatory requirement for employees to be present in the workplace is common. Government agencies often have stringent security protocols and a need for face-to-face collaboration due to the sensitive nature of procurement activities. Ensuring transparency, accountability, and effective communication are essential in this sector. Consequently, public agencies may find it challenging to align the desire for remote work with these types of mandatory requirements. So, we know the government procurement sector faces a complex employment landscape, with strong job reports contrasting the difficulties that agencies encounter in finding and retaining procurement experts. While job seekers increasingly desire remote work, public agencies' mandatory workplace requirements pose challenges due to the nature of the work and certain security considerations. Striking a balance between accommodating remote work preferences and meeting the public sector's requirements will require innovative approaches, flexible policies to attract and retain talented professionals in the government procurement sector. Thank you. And that's this month's look at the employment sector. Again, Kirk Buffington, and this is Radio NIGP.
Thank you for joining us on another segment of Chapter Updates. As we head into spring, I know it's only February, but the groundhog said spring is coming soon. We have a new addition to Radio NIGP and the Chapter Updates segment. Ginger Line will now be joining me each month as we bring you all the news from the NIGP chapters. Ginger, welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of our Radio NIGP staff. I am sure many of our viewers know you, but please do go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Penny. I've been listening to Radio NIGP since it's come out, so I am just so excited to be a part of this amazing team. And I am just looking forward to, doing this every month and taking it to the next level. So thank you so much. Yes, I have probably met a lot of you, but not all of you. And I hope to one day meet every single one of you, because that is who I am. But my name is Ginger Line, and I work for Sourcewell as a senior procurement analyst. I've worked there for over 15 years. I am a past president of the Minnesota chapter. I went on the board there. I was in governance, membership, vice president, and president, as well as a very active participant, and still am to this day. I'm also a Area 6 chapter ambassador, Go Area 6. I've also been on the Board of Examiners for the UPPCC for the CPPB exam. I have been a member of NIGP for maybe 10 to 12 years. I should probably look that up. And so I have my CPPB certification. I have my NIGP CPP that I got last year. And so always looking forward to continuous learning and what else I can bring to my own organization to be better. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So this month, we will bring you some insights from the NIGP Chapter Relations Manager, Jennifer Staffen, and our enthusiastic facilitator for Chapter Academy, Peggy Hoffman, discussing how to find those loyal to the profession that we can recruit and retain at the chapter level. We also get a chance to see those practices in action, speaking with Amber Yates from the Arkansas chapter.
Well, thank you. Today we have Jennifer Staffen and Peggy Hoffman here to talk about chapters and retaining members for those chapters and engagement. So thank you both very much for being here. I hope that everybody knows who you are, and if they don't, they should. Peggy has been presenting at many chapter events and leadership summits and all of the different things with NIGP. And she can kind of talk a little bit more about her experience as well. And Jennifer Staffen is all things chapters, right? So if you are on a chapter and you have questions, you can contact her. If you want to be on a chapter, you can contact her, anything like that. So we have great, valuable resources here today, and they're going to give us some great insight. So Jennifer, can you just talk about some trends that you've seen, maybe in chapter leadership or membership, really as it pertains to growth and retention?
Sure. There's, I think, a simple thing that I'm seeing first, and then I think there's a more elaborate thing that I'm seeing in trends. This actually first one really deals with leadership and seeing and really questioning your leadership terms. I'm finding chapters are really backing away from this. You have to go through the succession and all of the roles to be a president, or backing away from 2-year terms. Is that our people nowadays are just not giving that amount of commitment like they used to before, and they want shorter, quick engagement and volunteer rolling. And I think doing those type of things keeps your members engaged. Renewals will keep going. I think if you're going to get burnout, they're going to burn out all the way. So I think that's a simple one to look at, is your terms. I think a bigger one is, I know we're all tired of talking about COVID, but COVID changed volunteerism, where you spend your money and your time, and our chapters and chapters like this really are affected by that. And I think that chapters cannot rest on laurels now that we're back in person of the way we've always done things. And I think it is a prime time for chapters to really sit back and kind of reimagine who they can be, whether that's having much more of a virtual presence and hybrids, to the way they engage with young professionals coming in, and really how people are spending their time. One of the things Peggy points out so much is that everybody looks for dues renewal and numbers and coming in butts and seats. And what does that mean for the chapter? And I think you're going to find more people are engaged on levels that you can't look at like that. It's not who's attending everything all the time, but you may be the one that reads all the newsletters, and that's a member that's engaged, and that's a member that'll keep coming back. So I think it's really good to take a step back and really rethink about what your chapter can look like in this new world going forward.
So Peggy, let's ask you a question. Are public volunteers any different than any other professional agencies?
So let's dissect that a little bit by noting that there is a lot of similarities between individuals who choose to volunteer for their professional society and individuals that choose to volunteer in a more community or public basis. The interesting dynamic is that when I'm giving my time to a community program, civic program, I don't need as much of the personal or professional what's in it for me. Because generally speaking, it is a project or an organization of passion. The difference is when I'm doing professional organization, it's connected to my career. And so I have to get something back for my career, right? I have to get something back, whether I'm taking it back to my job, my agency, or I'm taking it to me personally. So that is kind of the difference. But what is really interesting is that while that motivation is slightly different, the willingness of what you'll do, and to Jennifer's point of view, the sort of the expectations of today are pretty much similar across the spectrum there, and meaning specifically, it better be an outcome-based opportunity that you're giving me. It better make a difference in some way or shape, either for the organization or for the members or for the individuals. And it's got to use my time wisely, which generally translates to shorter opportunities. Micro is a word we use a lot, and micro is a word we use a lot, not because it's even sticking to the traditional sense of micro, which was in and out real quickly, as much as it is you're asking what you're asking my commitment for time, and I'm carving some time for you, as opposed to feeling like I have to restructure my life for you. And that's going to be true whether I am giving to the Boy Scouts, the PTA, my religious organization, or my professional association.
Wow, I mean, that's really good, right? Change it up. What's in it for them? And if you can answer those questions, you'll be in a great place at your chapter. I love that. So Jen, or even Peggy too, if you want to add in, are there any, innovative ideas that you've heard of or seen to kind of retain and grow those members?
I have two, and I'm going to call out two chapters because I see them doing it and I see it working. So first came from our Tampa Bay chapter, and they actually did visits from the chapter president, actually in conjunction with an ambassador, to agencies that have never been members of their organization before. It was a sales pitch, if you will, for use better words there. The talk about what are the benefits of joining the chapter, and that in conjunction with the ambassador, what is NIGP, what is the institute, and why would you want to belong to both? I thought that was a great use, especially to go to new agencies that didn't know about you. I thought it was very innovative, and to do it together. The other one that I want to call out is the Kentucky chapter. They've been doing this for years. It's not innovative, but I'm not hearing a lot of chapters jumping onto this, but I think it's been working. And that is good old fashioned cold calls. And their board is breaking up their membership for these calls. And they can be for various things. So if you're talking about membership, growth and retention, is dividing those that do not renew and calling and asking, why didn't you renew this year? What is missing? What will make you want to come back? You can call agencies and members who haven't been a member for a year or two. What is it going to take for you to come back? Mm-hmm. But I think those cold calls go even farther than member growth and retention. It's a connection with your membership to find out what their interests are. Why maybe they've been a member for years and paid dues, but why aren't they coming to anything in person? Are you not having the topics that they like? Is it not the right location or time? I think it's a great touch point in where individuals feel connected to the group, and it's just not the blast emails that we're getting all the time. So not super innovative, but I think extremely effective for membership growth and retention.
Yeah, those are great ideas.
I love my job because I get to travel around the country and visit with, if you will, groups of chapter leaders from lots of different organizations. And there's something in common about this. How do we retain and grow members, or how do we, make sure members are engaging? And how do we draw in, retain, and grow the next generation? So whether you're talking about I'm a chapter leader, or I am a person sitting in a, state, the Maryland, I'm in Maryland, in the State Department, in the Maryland procurement office, or in one of the county procurement offices, the back of my mind is that staffing situation. So in both cases, what works is the ability to draw people into conversation. So just as Jen was saying, it's picking up the phone, or as Tampa did, it's going and visiting. But as I've gone around the country and talked to some other folks, consistently hearing that where they're able to make connections with students and make connections with non-members, either way, right, has a lot to do with bringing people into the community. So, for example, there is a Washington, D.C. based chapter of another organization, and they have put together an entire day and they bring students to a facility, and these students get to see the whole day, right? They get to walk alongside the professional. And what they've done is they've crafted some really cool fun activities as part of that, and then give them the agency swag at the end, right? Like, hey, anyway. The point being is that engaging people in the conversation. You could do that for folks that are already in the workplace. You could do sort of a mentoring, or you could have members actually come in to, or non-members rather, come into an event that your chapter is holding, and have them sort of experience how you're going about putting that event together. So I guess the interesting thing for us is to really think about this idea that that mentoring, that one-on-one, that coaching, that making those individual connections are going to be more powerful in workforce development, or in member development, or in volunteer development, as as a strategy, versus let's hold another reverse trade show or another conference. There's a place for those, but those are not going to be where you're going to bring in necessarily new folks, retain or grow or deepen the relationship.
It makes me think of a signing ceremony. When high school students sign to a college, you want them to be that excited about your chapter.
Yeah, and that's, Peggy, that kind of leads right into our next thing too, about, what kind of insights do you have for those chapters who are trying to recruit more volunteers? You've got to make it fun. You've got to make them want to be there. What other kinds of things would you say that we should be doing to encourage those folks?
I think the number one thing I'm going to suggest, and I preach this quite a bit, but is break down the jobs, make them smaller jobs, make the cost to entry a lot lower, so that you can get individuals who are not volunteers to try it on. It's really about trying it on. When I'm successful, when I see that I've done something, I've worked with a group of my peers, we accomplished something, I can sense the differences, then I'm willing to say, well, what else needs to be done? What's the next step? So it could be as simple as, if you are going to have that reverse trade show, for example, what are all the small jobs that you can have a member, particularly adding to the registration form? Okay, you've registered to come. Isn't this awesome? By the way, here are 5 ways that you can deepen your experience by helping. So, I feel like it takes the extra step or two to break down those opportunities, but it allows people to find that connection. And also, we don't name all of the jobs that are volunteering. We don't name them as, or in our minds, as volunteers, and so we don't think of them as volunteer opportunities, or as opportunities to cast the web and bring them in. And for example, there are people who are really excited about next gen development, right? Workforce development. That kind of an individual, if in your new member welcome you said to folks, tell us what you're interested in, then you reach out to that person and say, hey, we're going to go over and talk with a class at the local university, or heck, the local high school, right? And we're looking for people to help carry the stories. That person goes. That person's a volunteer. And then once you celebrate that volunteer, you can say, did you enjoy this? Wow. We have other things like this throughout the year. How can I keep you on the list? You're not asking them to sign up to take a job on the board. You're asking them to get involved in building the community around, in this case, government procurement in your area. And I think that's really what has to happen for us to engage more of our members and more of our next gen into our chapter operations.
Peggy, and one thing I'll piggyback to that, I have seen that the more chapters whose members volunteer and participate will retain and stay members. And what a selling feature when you're trying to say, what is the value here? To say 50%, 75% of our membership all are involved or volunteer. Well, that would be something to say, wow, something's going on here that this group is that engaged and I want to be part of that. So I think that's a good selling point of keeping those members active and engaged. And it's those little things and it's that little ask.
I know I always have fun in my volunteers so far. Enjoyed it so much. So yes, it is about finding that thing. I often say, you probably don't want me to be your treasurer. Doesn't play with my strength. So it is nice to find that thing that everybody does well, because if I would have started by doing that, I probably wouldn't have been very active beyond that because I wouldn't have enjoyed it. So
Right.
That's awesome. So what can, either one of you tell us about, but we can maybe start with Peggy here, what you can tell us about those who maybe have considered volunteering, but just haven't yet?
So we have actually a lot of research on that question. So we have a lot of research on what gets a person to consider, what gets a person to actually say yes, and what gets a person to actually then follow through, right? Because those are all different points. And we as volunteer recruiters don't always remember that there's all those different points. But first of all, if you want somebody to even consider, you have to ask them personally. And people who have considered volunteering but haven't found a place will oftentimes tell us, well, nobody really asked and I really didn't know what to do. So, but bottom line, nobody really asked. Mm-hmm. And I tell chapter leaders all the time, sending a mass email or getting up in front of a room and saying, hey, let's volunteer is not going to work. It really means me reaching out and saying, hey, Jen, I saw you at that other thing, and I noticed you were talking about this, and I would love to sort of pull you in. So it's really the ask is most important. However, even with the ask, folks, the really what it comes down to, the next couple of reasons are I don't have the time, which translates to oftentimes I don't understand the commitment you're asking me, so I'm going to start with a default of I don't have the time. So that ties into, are we being clear about the ask? Are we being clear about the amount of time that you're asking me? And then the other element that we hear a lot about is flexibility. Like, you want me to volunteer, but you've either picked a date I can't, or you've picked a schedule I can't, or a time you can't. I just can't fit into it. All of that kind of goes into that time thing. People will say, I don't have time. As soon as someone says to you, I don't have time, then you have to do the follow-up question and go, oh, I know we are all so busy. If you had time to give, can you give me a sense? Is that like an hour, 3 hours, 4 hours, or is there a rhythm in your day that works better? All of a sudden, you've changed the conversation from no to what would work for you. And then the person says, hey, I'm feeling it. But the research has been very clear. Number one reason is I wasn't asked, tied with this idea of I don't have a sense of the job. I don't have the clarity around that. And it's going to be, and if it's a big lift, I can't do it anyway. The last thing I'm going to mention is that oftentimes to seal the deal, you have to tell them why you need them. So, for example, on let's just say on an education event, and you can say, I need you to help us because we're going to have, I'm making this up, we're going to have a bunch of students and next gen folks, and you have such a good sense of talking with them. It will make them feel so welcome. Will you help me? All of a sudden, you've connected with me that there's going to be an outcome, right? I'm going to make an experience better for someone. You've connected that I'm the individual that you need. So I think that's the other piece in this. And if you want somebody to actually show up, being able to show them that they're going to have an impact is important.
Thank you.
Great. So ladies, we'll kind of wrap this up, but And at the time of recording this, I know that you are both working very hard towards a big event coming up. So to wrap it up, tell us about what NIGP does to support the chapters with and assist the chapters with these efforts.
I'll take that one. I think for one is actually not what NIGP does, but I think it's chapters needing to leverage other chapters. While I'm going to mention all kinds of resources we have in place, I think as chapter leaders, your best go-tos are your peers in leadership. If you thought it, you had a question, you struggled with it, I guarantee you one of the other 70 chapters have as well. So I think leaning on them is excellent. And there's several ways to do that. One is we have our Insight Chapter Leader Community discussion group is to post that question out there, get feedback, attend our monthly chapter huddles, which you can come and it's just a free open discussion platform for you to bring those questions and hear what is out there, as well as attending our quarterly chapter leader calls in which we share with other chapters in your area what's happening, what's working and what's not working, and how we can help support each other. I think the other two really important resources is our chapter ambassador program. They were put in place to be here for you and to support you through visits, through discussions, meeting with your board, and with the extension of that, now our SME program, which will launch in 2 weeks at Chapter Academy, which is our subject matter experts, in which a chapter can request one-on-one to deal with, we need help strategic planning, or we need help with putting a budget together, whatever it might be. And I think lastly is, and I mentioned it at the beginning, is the resource library, online library that we have for chapters that is chocked full of documents and examples. And I tell chapters all the time, if you go there and you see something that's not there or something that's missing, ask me, we'll put something together. Or if you look at strategic planning, you're like, I have one and it's not there, share it. That's the best way for me to keep cultivating new things into the resource library. So those are just a smattering of the resources that we have to support our chapters.
And I think I would like to just lift up Jen. I know she's modest, and I think that's really excellent and awesome. But sometimes when you are a chapter leader, particularly maybe if you're a new chapter leader and you're not sure, like she's just giving you like all those places to go. You may not have even met your chapter ambassador just yet, but you will have met Jen. I am certain of it. she now has a colleague helping her a bit on some of this stuff. So I really think that you know that you can turn to NIGP because they have an incredible commitment to the chapters, largely because they have an incredible commitment to members. At the end of the day, the chapters, it's another channel for members, and NIGP members are the best. And so it's great that you can lean on the organization for one of your support. So anyway, Jen, there you go. I had to say.
Peggy, appreciate it.
Yeah,
I've always said, anybody is willing. That's why I stay and do what I do, is that, at the end of the day, I love those one-on-ones and I love being able to mentor in that way. I wish there were multiple of me that can help do that more, but I say there's never a dumb question. Keep them coming. That's where I'm here for, is to help support our chapters in any way they need that.
I think that everyone can agree as well that yes, Jen is awesome. All I could think of as when you were talking is that song, like, you are not alone, I am here with you. I will not sing because nobody wants that, but that's all that kept going through my head. And it's true, whether it's your chapter members or your chapter ambassador, or it's Jen, because you don't know where to go. It's definitely a resource for you and an option. So thank you for everything that you do. And I'm very thankful also that they found you, Peggy, to be able to bring you in and be able to lead a whole bunch of sessions and talk about how it can help. Anything to add there, Penny?
I think that's it. Thank you both very much. We really appreciate you. I know as I said, I know you're really busy getting ready for Chapter Academy. So we appreciate you taking the time to talk to everyone with us. Amber, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, we hear that you have some experience of recruiting and retaining members in your chapter. So would you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So after Chapter Academy last year in St. Louis, we got some really great ideas from Peggy, and we instituted the Red Carpet Committee. So anytime we have a new member that signs up, we get a notification from Club Express and immediately reach out to that vendor, thank them for joining, and also ask them, what would you like to see with the chapter? What can we provide for you? And so getting that feedback and applying it has been really valuable in getting engagement from the members. Additionally, last year we started with when we do our conference registration, we have obviously an AR NIGP member level of pricing, and then we also offer a non-Arkansas NIGP level of pricing. And what we did is we just added the cost of membership to that. So after the conference is through, we add them in as members for the entire year, and most of them will renew their membership. So that's been a really good way to grow and retain members. Additionally, the Office of State Procurement has not been really involved the last few years, and we took advantage of a leadership change over there to reach out and invite them to come to conference, invite them to speak to conference this year. And we're able to get them registered and added as members, which has really helped with getting state membership up as well.
That's great. So with all this additional engagement and getting, kind of recruiting more members, and have you seen, it sounds like it does help retain them, but has that also helped with your volunteer base as well?
It has. This year, last year we were not doing so well, I would say, in terms of being able to get volunteers for leadership positions. It was really tough, and it was kind of the same sort of people. But this year we have actually 4 new members that have expressed interest in being committee chairs. So it's been really great kind of getting that level of interest up and that level of involvement.
That's awesome. So, and one other quick thing, have you gotten some additional great ideas? These are all fabulous ideas that you've implemented in your chapter, but getting these new folks involved as well too, has that brought even more ideas on how you can further, recruit and retain your members?
It has. So, I recruited because I thought our new president-elect, we didn't have anybody submit an application to become the president-elect. So I kind of went out and sort of did some recruitment, and one of our newer members, his name's Les McGaw, we were able to bring him in, and he's been phenomenal in terms of providing a lot of great new ideas. In fact, one of his ideas was to join kind of forces with one of the other Arkansas public educational committees. So it's the Arkansas Public Fleet Association. So we're actually joining forces with them to do our 2024 conference. And that's been really great because we are sharing cost of the venue, sharing cost of the food, sharing cost of the keynote speakers and things like that. And then they're going to do, we're doing part fleet and inventory management, and then part procurement and leadership. So that was a really great idea and a really fresh idea. And I thought that it was a really, with chapters, struggling with funding, I hear that a lot. I thought that was a really good, fresh idea of making good use of funding and still being able to put on a great conference and have great speakers. Yeah, one other thing that I had thought of, because I jotted down notes, one other thing that I forgot to mention was about, we added a line item in our budget for professional, like subsidizing Arkansas NIGP professional development to kind of keep the cost of those classes down for the members, because our members don't have large training and development budgets. So we were able to offer 2 professional development classes this year for only $50 to our members.
Wow, $50. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great bargain.
Yes. Yeah. For eight contact hours, I would say so.
That's fabulous. Amber, thanks for sharing with us today. That's a lot of great
Absolutely.
things for us to share out there with the other chapters.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Amber. That was awesome. What a way to put out that red carpet for your members.
Good afternoon, everyone. Kirk Buffington with Radio NIGP with another update from NIGP headquarters. Today, we are going to discuss professional development. And in particular, we're going to have a little discussion about the new professional development calendar that NIGP has introduced, the concierge service that is available to members to help kind of plan out their professional development over the next year, and other real innovative things that NIGP has brought forth in professional development. With me today, I have Cheryl Markey with the state of Washington, and she is the Procurement Innovation Manager, which is a title I would have loved to have had in my staff. And also with us is Emily Brown, who is a program support specialist with Clark County Regional Wastewater in Washington State. So thank you both for being here. Tell us about the calendar and the concierge service and what else NIGP has been doing to help members with their professional development.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us today, Kirk. We are so excited about where NIGP is headed with professional development. We really, as a community, as an organization, are looking at taking professional development in the procurement industry to a more innovative, forward-thinking, pre-planned, strategic, and thoughtful place where we are really looking forward. And the calendar is one thing that's new that helps kind of identify what's ahead so that you are able to see the future, what's available through NIGP, and what you might be able to access if you register 60 days in advance of a course. You get 20% off of that price for that course. And that's just one of the many ways that NIGP is trying to help us think strategically.
Great. So does the calendar go out 12 months and it's kind of a rolling 12 calendar or rolling 12 months? Or is it, 12 months at a time and it updates annually?
Great question, Kathy. I apologize. I don't know the answer to that.
Right. Right now it goes out through 2024.
Okay.
But it will be a rolling calendar. But for now, it's again the fact that you can really see all the way through December 2024.
Great. The rolling helps because not obviously agencies are on different fiscal years. So that will help them plan out into their next fiscal year if it rolls. So that's great. So tell me a little bit about the concierge service. I have recommended it to people when I've been facilitating classes, but maybe you could share a little bit more detail about how that actually works for a member.
Oh, I'd be thrilled to. This was kind of my brainchild, actually, so it's near and dear to my heart. Todd Slater, the Chief Content Officer, and I, and a great team of NIGP leaders are helping to get this off the ground, and it's really exploded. So I was hearing a lot when I was chair of the member council and on the national governing board, and also as Washington chapter president, that our members are struggling to navigate the array of offerings that NIGP presents to them, provides them for education, training, certification. It's a lot. And so many people, I mean, it's a good problem to have, right?
Yes, agreed. Pathways exploded in what it offers.
Yes. It's amazing. We're so blessed by that. But especially people coming in new to procurement that may or may not have a background or a plan to be in procurement, like 99% of us, or even people that have been in procurement for a while and just aren't really clear what the next step should be. The concierge service is free to members. And what we do is we help members navigate all of those options available to them. We ask them to complete a simple questionnaire that gives us their background, where they've been, where they're at currently, and where they see themselves in the future. And it really helps people pause and look at what their near-term goals are and their longer-term goals and what they want to be doing in the future and what they don't want to be doing. Often people only see the natural progression, the steps right in front of them, like, oh, I have to be a supervisor next. Well, do you really want to supervise people? Or do you have a passion for finance or for real estate or for construction or for IT? Or, where do you see yourself? Do you want to do big projects? Do you have more strategic thinking that you would really like to tap into? Are you a policy person? Are you legislative? Do you want to be a CPO? And then, so what are those leadership soft skills that we can help you develop? And so from that questionnaire, we take all that great information they provide and we review it, we analyze it, and then we come up with a recommended plan, a path forward for them based on pathways and all of the great community things available like chapters and mentorship and leadership summit and all the options out there in NIGP CPP certification. A big one that comes up is the PPAD, the designation as a great foundation. And then where do they go from there? And then we help get them registered in all these classes. And then we stay with them throughout their journey. It's not a one and done. We are here by your side for life. They can reach out to us anytime. Yeah.
I can tell you that when I came up through getting the CPPO, what I lacked and didn't even recognize that I lacked was the soft skills. And knowing I wanted to be a manager and ultimately a director, I got the technical training and development, but I really never really took the time to recognize that I needed the soft skills. And I kind of ended up learning the hard way how important those soft skills are. So making that part of their planning is just critical to being successful. So that's
absolutely great. As a leader, I was constantly having staff come to me. They're excellent procurement practitioners, but they couldn't make that leap into leadership, and they couldn't understand why. And it was those soft skills they hadn't been exposed to, and exposed to the business side of the house. And so giving people, closing those gaps and identifying that early. And if that's where they want to head, let's help them get there. And then we also do the same for agencies. I wanted to mention, we have so many agencies now coming on board saying, hey, can you help me look at our entire division? So we look at what their strategic plan is, their priorities, their program goals, their needs, and then we assess every team member and we kind of group them in buckets from the newer staff just starting out in their journey, the middle, and then those leaders that really have been with them for a while. Maybe they're already certified, but what's next for them also? And we try to level set in holistic approach to an entire procurement contracts division, which these organizations are really appreciating this.
I had no idea you were doing some, professional development, strategic planning, if you will, for the agencies. I think that's great. And again, it's free to agency members, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Super. Emily, what have you got to share?
Hello. First of all, thank you for having me today. So I am new to procurement, and then of course I was newer to NIGP really just last year. I've been involved in some contracting and supporting, but as our district is continuing to grow and we're kind of adopting this new position and looking at kind of, we spoke before, we started the program about kind of centralizing some of our processes. It was I was a little bit lost, as to where do I begin? I know I can do certain things. I have an understanding, but as far as first getting involved with NIGP but what I struggled with was, where do I begin my educational journey in this process? And as you guys have kind of discussed earlier, Cheryl made a good point. There's so many classes and options out there for career development through NIGP. I just really didn't know where to go. I looked at the PPA certification and just all the different classes and hours and things that you need, but where you begin. So I don't know where. I think I was just scrolling through the website and found the concierge service, and I clicked on it and started the process, and I couldn't be more thankful for that, because it aligned me to at least get started, and through that I was able to do the program for the PPA designation, the Public Procurement Associate designation, which aided me in a lot of processes within our district that have come about, new contracts, new grant funding, all the different things that I am now heavily involved in. This whole process and all the resources and tools that NIGP offers really assisted me. And just getting that start through the concierge service was more than I could have asked for. And I can't wait to continue my journey as time goes. And I guarantee I'll be using the concierge service for my next steps.
I'll be here.
Yes.
Cheryl, I can't thank you enough. Just as a person who has, seen the value of what this can be for particularly our new members, who can just get overwhelmed when they look at the pathways courses. I mean, I get overwhelmed. So for you kicking that off and taking the lead on that, Cheryl, I really thank you for that. And I'm so glad that NIGP has become so proactive with it. But that's just great. And Cheryl, Emily, I appreciate you sharing your story and what it's meant for you. Anything else either of you would like to add?
Just to really reach out to us. We are here for you. It's free. It's on the website. We are looking at growing our team of volunteers that help people with their journey. If anybody's interested in that. We also are looking to hopefully automate the website a little so that it can really help members that don't feel like sending us an email. Maybe just populate that questionnaire and get it to us in our hands so we can help. And we're just starting out, really. So any way we can grow this and keep it going is incredible. And one other thing I wanted to add we talked about practitioners trying to make that leap into leadership and new procurement people coming on. The other piece we're really seeing is new leaders that have never been in procurement, but they're in a leadership role. And it's because the state of the world is different today. And so we're also looking at how we can help those leaders quickly get up to speed on procurement while also leading their team and their troops into the future. So that's one other really important piece of it.
That's great. And you're right. I mean, in my teaching that I do, I can't tell you the number of new managers that have come into a leadership position in an agency, and they come with private sector experience. They come with very little public sector, if any at all. And here they are in a manager type position leading folks, in the agency. So, NIGP recognizing that and being able to try to fill that void, if you will, in their skills is, again, something that NIGP has become so good at. They've become so good at pivoting as the world changed as a result of COVID, pivoting to the virtual training, pivoting to these, this professional development concierge and calendar. It's all about meeting the needs of our membership. And I just thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Emily. It's just been a great interview. And I think there's a lot of good information packed into this probably short 8 or 9 minutes. But again,
absolutely.
Thank you both so much. That's it from Radio NIGP and our February update of professional development and planning. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kirk.
friends, Stacey Adams here, and I am ready and excited to introduce you to a true procurement professional on the go. Welcome, Suli Milan. Welcome, and glad to have you.
Hi, Stacey. Thank you for having me.
Great. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself to our viewers.
Awesome. Well, I'm Zuli Milan. I'm the Assistant Manager of Procurement for Orange County. I have been with the county for over 20 years in varying roles. I started in more of a fiscal and finance role and transitioned to procurement almost 20 years ago. And in my role now, I supervise 40 people in varying teams. So it's a great experience for me.
That's awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about the secret to your success. How'd you get started and what got you to where you are today?
Well, it was kind of unique for me because I started my career super young in government. I was 17 when I was hired with the county, which is kind of unusual. So I've had the experience in procurement of being both a young professional and a seasoned professional, which it comes with its challenges and its opportunities. But from early experiences, I had chances to work on things that were procurement related, and that really kind of inspired my career path.
That's awesome. And that is a unique perspective to have when you come in at 17 and to see. So what did you do to help open those doors to really get your foot in there and to enter into procurement?
You know, when you have your early experiences, sometimes we experience discouragement, right? All of us, we get shut down. Our enthusiasm gets shut down, right? And I had some of those experiences, right? And I guess that's a conversation for another day. But what I had more of were experiences that were opportunities, really. That was my first experience was I'm working on a scope of service, and for my boss at the time, that was another task for him to do, right? It was another thing on his plate. But it was the thing that inspired me to get into procurement because he was like, hey, I need you to work on this scope of services, right? And I'm like 19, 20 years old, and I'm like, oh, I get to write this whole big document and make things the way I want them to be, right? So that was an opportunity. It inspired me to move forward. Thereafter, I had the opportunity to work under Joe Benjamin, one of our procurement superstars. And that came with its challenges too, right? He gave me new opportunities to try new things, and he integrated me into a team where the youngest member of that team was still 25 years my senior, right? And he helped me manage that, right? And he helped me try new things, experience new things. And then ultimately, right now, I work under the leadership of Carrie Mathis, and she's challenged me to stretch, right? To have new experiences and to build new things from scratch. And so that's really informed my career, my ability to be successful and have failures and to have the space to do so has been a game changer for me and something that I'm trying to promote with my team as well.
That's great. You know, you and I were talking the other day in preparation for having this conversation. And one of the things that you mentioned that you also didn't just sit idly by and wait for things to come to you. That, you know, when you didn't really have an opportunity to get involved with something, you made that opportunity. So you took on those challenges that maybe some of the other folks really didn't want. So you kind of insert yourself and shadow others to help learn from them. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I think it's really easy to become like apathetic and just come in and do your job and go home, right? But if you get vested and take ownership of what you're doing, it really opens up a lot of doors. And to that end, that has served me well in my career. And I have to think of ways for other people to have that same positive experience. So something that we're doing at Orange County is we've developed an initiative called Impact, and it's an initiative for managing transformation and change. It's an acronym. I forget exactly what, you know how we love procurement. So many letters. Acronyms in procurement. So it's essentially managing continuous transformation. And so what we've done is, instead of, pretending that all the talent is at the top, we are leveraging the talent across our entire team and turning challenges into opportunities. And so we're giving the team an opportunity to stretch through what we call impact projects. And we're assigning everyone to impact projects so that they could take stock and ownership of our procurement operation, of our agency initiatives, of transformational change, and so that they could attribute successes to themselves. And so it's something we're really excited about. We're launching it in 2024. So we're just launching these projects, and we're really excited to see how it all what the result is.
Well, what a great way to truly mentor and develop the skill set for that next level of procurement professional to come into it to gain those skills that they need going forward. So this is a breeding ground really to train up that next, well, I guess you could call it kind of bench strength, or when you have a job opportunity come up, they get their training wheels. Absolutely. In this impact program.
It's also something I want to encourage other agencies to do, to really think about what your bench strength is, right? To think about what talents you're developing in yourself and what talents you're developing in your team. So to that end, if there are any listeners who are interested in learning more about our program and interested in developing their own program, I am super happy to collaborate and to share ideas and to learn from what they're doing as well.
That's awesome, Sulie. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes of your time today to really chat with the viewers, and just want to take a moment to thank you and celebrate you for truly being the procurement professional that you are. You have definitely done great things, and I know even more wonderful things are ahead. So thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Stacy. It was so great to be here, and I'm excited to participate.
Awesome. Have a great day.
You too.
Hello, everyone. This is Radio NIGP, and I am Linda Allaire on the staff of Radio NIGP, and I'm very fortunate to have with me today someone who you probably already know, but if you don't, we're going to introduce you to him. Michael Beavis. Michael has a whole list of certifications, of qualifications after his name, but the one I'd really like to point out is he is a fellow of NIGP, and he's also a lawyer. So one of those folks you go to when you have those serious questions. Michael has been around a significant number of years. He's held a number of different positions, and he's moved around the country, and he has been a mainstay in NIGP. Whether it's through training or whether it's through NIGP leadership, mentoring people, building a network, heaven knows I've known Michael for years and have gotten to know him from his involvement with different events for NIGP. So, Michael, I have a question for you.
Okay, I don't know if I can follow that introduction, but I'll try.
You have a lot of things that you volunteer in. Your time, your leadership, your knowledge, your experiences. Why do you do that?
Why do I do that? Because I enjoy being with people who have shared interests. I enjoy helping people. I enjoy seeing people grow and seeing people have aha moments and seeing people realize more and more of their potential. So, and I also enjoy learning from others. So all those things combine when you volunteer, right? When you volunteer, you for me, I get back so much more than I give. In fact, I usually feel like I'm cheating when I volunteer, like I'm suddenly for free getting stuff that I should be paying for somehow.
Well, and I suspect that part of that is because you have fun doing it too. I have seen you in action.
Well, absolutely. It's where I have fun, and it doesn't matter where it is. I mean, I even volunteer outside of these organizations. Like I volunteer on a two-masted schooner, a tall ship from the days of old, and when I'm on that ship as crew, I'm thinking, oh my God, people pay to do this, and I get to do it for free and have fun. And it's the same thing with like Radio NIGP. I go to a Radio NIGP meeting, and I get to learn and laugh and spend time with friends, and I'm getting paid to be at work at the same time. So it's pretty amazing, and it continues that way. And plus, public purchasing people, especially, are fun people to be around. They're all dedicated to giving back to their communities. They're all involved in making things better and involved in growing themselves. And who else would you want to be around?
Very good points. Very good points. So following on that theme and building in with our theme for this month's presentations for Radio NIGP, how do you see volunteer efforts fitting in with supporting membership, whether that's membership of your entity, the departments you're serving, or whether it's NIGP or some other association membership?
Yeah, there's this grayness, there's this muddiness for me between membership and employment and profession and all this. So it's all the same thing. And for me, being involved and being deeply engaged in the associations, especially in IGP, gives me the ability to both grow my own talent, but see where talent is and what talent is doing. So if I'm thinking about a vacancy, which by the way, I'll have one coming up. I can recruit from the network that I've developed through this volunteerism. If I'm thinking about looking at other opportunities, or on those rare occasions where I'm really frustrated and tired of my job, one of the things I do is go look at the openings, right? It makes me feel better sometimes. But that idea of networking and knowing who's good and who's growing and who's coming up and who's ready for a change and all those things just makes the volunteerism kind of pay off, right? Both in connecting people who are looking to be connected to a new opportunity and in finding people who might come be part of my own teams, wherever that happens to be.
So you're using the volunteering to grow yourself, grow your staff, grow your friends, find new friends, find potential hires.
Yeah, make connections, right? It's all about making connections. And sometimes those connections are for yourself, but that's not the main reason I do it. Usually those connections are about connecting others. It's like, oh, you're asking about that. Well, this person does that. You should talk to them. You should ask them about it. And then they get connected and have fun and solve problems and make the world a better place. And you get to sit back and think, wow, I actually helped that to happen, right? And it feels good. It's like, I actually tell my small women and minority-owned businesses about how to use their access to our information to help them build business connections. And in some ways, that's the same thing that happens through the professional associations for us. We can use those experiences to build our connections and the connections of others. And that creates a community. And I want to live in a community of people who have a shared interest and a desire to grow and get better.
Wow, that's great. And I can tell you from personal experience, for those who may not know, I'm Canadian. And if I have a legal question, you are one of the people on my list that I contact. Because not only are you a procurement colleague, you're also a lawyer. So guess what?
And
some free legal advice.
And your free legal advice is worth exactly what you pay for it. Because I'm absolutely not qualified or authorized to practice law in Canada. But one of the beauties of Canada and the U.S. is we're both former Commonwealth countries, right? And, when I practiced law, I had the opportunity I had the questionable opportunity to opine about things that were going on in other former Commonwealth places like Hong Kong or like India or wherever. And of course, I know nothing about those laws, but there's similarities there. So when you see similarities, you can see patterns, and you can take those patterns and you create possible solutions, right? And you just have to qualify it always with, I don't really know. And that's evidence I was really a practicing lawyer, is the fact that I qualify what I'm saying by saying this isn't legal advice, right?
Well, and in my world, one, I'm not a practicing lawyer, but I did enter into contracts with a lot of US companies.
Sure.
Because that just happened to be the way of the world for some entities. And, you know, having someone who's on the US side and a lawyer can be very, very beneficial. Just the way it's the same way to, leverage your network. If there's a question you've got about something that you're not familiar with, call on your friends. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Call on your friends. And then when you're looking at insight at people who are commenting, if you have a broad enough network and they're your friends, you know who's really good, and you can tell right away, oh, they're talking about something I'm going to pay extra close attention, right?
well, and one of the other added benefits is your management come to realize that you have a network that crosses the border, and you have access to information that's not just from your little piece of the world. It goes beyond the real estate you're sitting on, gives you a much broader perspective and a greater overview.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is so much to be said for looking beyond and expanding your paradigm. It's the answers are usually beyond where you can see right now.
So true.
Yeah.
So anything else you would like to share with our viewers, Michael, before we call it a day?
Well, just the great thing about giving professionally, and the great thing about being engaged, is that you get to grow and you get to help and see others grow, and it becomes this. There truly is I hate to use the words that end up ticking off the buzzword bingo card, but the fact is the synergies in volunteerism are so amazing and so ridiculously good that it's almost a waste not to volunteer and not to engage, because it can only help you both personally, professionally, and as a member of the community.
And knowing your background, I know that you aren't just talking about volunteering with NIGP or a chapter. You're talking about volunteering in the big world, whether it's with another association or some other group.
Absolutely. I'm currently active in a couple of other associations, and I'm active in several local charities, and have been on boards of museums and things like that. And every time I've done it, it's provided ridiculously wonderful opportunities for me personally also. That's been indirect, but it's happened.
Wonderful. Well, some sage advice for those who know you and those who don't know you. And I'd like to thank you very much for joining me today.
Well, thank you, Linda, for having me.
Thank you. This is Radio NIGP.
Hello, friends. We hope you have enjoyed today's broadcast, where we have highlighted how to recruit and retain talent. Truth is, the key to recruiting and retaining is largely based on the culture and the environment you create in the workplace. Do team members feel valued, seen, and heard? Is the team collaborative, or does everyone work in a vacuum or a silo? As I wrap up, I want you to think about something. If you could create your ideal office culture, what would it be? Then I want you to ask yourself, what are you doing to make that culture a reality? Wow, won't that change your mindset? So whether or not you are currently a leader by title in your organization or not, we are all leaders and influencers of our environment. Be the difference. Be the thermostat, if you will. If you're not comfortable where you are, make some adjustments, change your focus, and be a contributor to the positive, ideal working environment and the culture that you're looking for. It's amazing how that positivity, just like negativity, is contagious. So my friends, if you're looking at how do you recruit, how do you retain, look at that culture and you make the difference and make it the place where you want to be. Bloom where you're planted, fertilize where you need to be. Have a good one, friends.
Hello and welcome to Radio NIGP Deeper Dive Making a Splash. Our topic for this month is loyalty to the profession, recruiting and retaining professionals. I have a whole host of colleagues here from Radio NIGP that are very excited about discussing this topic. So John, would you like to start us off?
Well, sure. You know, the group of us had sparked on this idea when it first came up. And when I think about professionals and being part of the profession and recruiting and retaining professionals, I expand in a slightly different direction too. So I think it's a bigger topic. I think about talent and talent management and talent identification. And for me, that's turned out to be good both for me as a person and also for me as putting together a team and working with a team. There are a couple of different angles that maybe we can talk about or might spark some other thoughts. One, you know, I think a bunch of us are pretty good about always managing our own careers within the profession. And part of that is that we look for different workplaces that might be a cool place to work, right? So that's part of what our professional networking about is to kind of keep your finger on where might be a nice place to work. You're looking for a reputation, someplace that'll give you growth and personal satisfaction, all of that. I think that's pretty understandable. But you can also expand it a little bit and include individual people. So another angle might be, who do I work, who do I know in NIGP or in my chapter or other professional circles that I go, yeah, that's somebody that, wouldn't that be cool to be on the team with them? Either they could come join me at my workplace, or maybe I could go join them at their workplace. And so I can start thinking about those individuals and who I might like to work with. Then the where can just fall out from there. You know, you can go talk to them and say, what's your workplace like? You know, is there any chance I could come work with you, or vice versa? So that's another angle. And then I also think about particularly those of us that have to put together a team. If you're in a supervisory position, I still vividly recall going to a forum presentation one time that we were talking about trends in the procurement and how to make your unit flourish. And one person said, well, you know, the way I'm going to make my unit flourish is to go out and find the most talented people that I possibly can and steal them from y'all and bring them over to my team. And then I'm going to do whatever I can to make them happy and give them what they need, because this person was really convinced that it was the strength of the team and the talent that was within the team that would make their organization run. So that's kind of another angle where you think about developing a pipeline of talented people. And it's, again, another reason to network with folks. You can talk to them. They can check you out. You can say, hey, I don't have any openings now, but, you know, would you be interested in shifting over if something opens up within the next year or two? So those are kind of a couple of different angles. Did that spark anything for anybody else?
Yes, thank you so much for sharing, John. And those three angles are definitely angles that we all have experienced or we look forward to experiencing. So next up, we have Keith Glass. Keith, what do you have?
One area I believe we can, that a candidate, if you're looking at a particular job or looking for a particular position, wherever, one of the important aspects I believe you need to look at is you need to look at the culture of the organization. Because you have certain personality characteristics, you have certain talents, and you really want it to mesh. You want it to blend seamlessly for both the employer and for yourself. And so I believe you need to seriously look at the culture of the organization that you're considering, because if you don't, you're going to be unhappy. If you have an organization with a culture that conflicts with your beliefs, or even the way you've always interacted with other people.
Right.
If you're the type of person that needs to that you feel you need to lead, you need to find an organization that will let you lead. If you're the type to just feel you want to be in a sort of a subservient follower position, then an organization that has that type of culture may be what you're looking for. And some people really do need that. So I believe culture is a very important aspect of consideration.
I agree with you 100%, Keith. And one of the things that I believe is important when you're looking for a job is to conduct your research. We conduct market research in our world all day. And I think we should do the same due diligence when we're looking to change employers. That's very important. So thanks for sharing that, Keith. Linda, what do you have for us?
Well, I'm going to build on what John and Keith have already said, but I'm going to come at it from a similar angle, but two different positions. And that's first as an interviewee. So I'm the one who's interviewing. And the second one is as the interviewer, because to me, the concept of researching potential employers follows that whole continuum. When I was an interviewee, I did the market research on positions that I was interested in, looking at the company. I've gone so far as to contact colleagues and say, you just left this position at company X or entity X. Why'd you leave? Because that's great insight. Now, keep in mind, take a little bit of that with a grain of salt, because if there's some frustration involved, that's going to come through. But they would get into things like the culture of the organization, like Keith said, the management style of the senior management. Now, those of you who know me or know of me, you'll realize I'm a type A, and I don't mind button heads a bit. But, there's kind of a wall that you hit at some point. As an interviewer, I would try to determine whether or not potential candidates had actually done any research on the organization that I was recruiting for. Because that to me indicated if they had an interest, if they really knew what the organization did, what we were about, what our culture was, what our goals were, and what our mandate was. And if they were wishy-washy on that, I'm sorry, but it just kind of turned me off. Technically, they may have been very competent, but that indicated to me that they really didn't have the interest that I was looking for in a team member. And rightly or wrongly, that was just my perception. And that may be the same with other interviewers that, interviewees are going in for positions. They don't know what their perception is. So if you can try and draw that out in some questions, this is what I've researched. Is that true? Did this actually happen? Are you involved in this type of stuff? How do you feel about, whatever it is that you're really passionate about? So it's a two-way street. It works both ways, but I found it was a real continuous component of employment and recruitment, and also retention, because if people weren't happy, they didn't stay. Right. They moved on very quickly.
And that is so true. And in today's world, with everyone competing for the best talent, it makes it a little bit easier sometimes to leave from one organization and go somewhere else. Tara, what do you have for us?
I was going to say, I sort of agree with Linda, but sort of don't in some ways. And so as John was first talking, I was thinking, I think we used to approach things from like, how do I get the most talented person? And if I have all the most talented people on my team, then I'm going to be the best team. But I think there's a lot more to it than just how talented someone is. It really is about how they work together. And so for me, finding the right fit for culture as somebody who's building a team, I'm looking for the person who has the right attitude and the right motivation for the position. And I think in a world where we're competing for resources, where we're poaching from other agencies, if you've got a rock star applying for your job, you're going to know that you have a rock star applying for your job. I think the more difficult thing from the interviewer perspective is looking at those people that may not have procurement experience and that are interested in it, and how do you look at where they're coming from and say, hey, I can borrow from some of those things and I can teach you the procurement side of things. And then the other part of that is, as an interviewee, you also know the culture that you're probably going to in this network. Things that I would be looking at is, what is the leadership? What is their involvement with professional organizations? Again, this is radio NIGP, so we might focus on NIGP, but there's NPI, there's GFOA, depending on which areas you're in. I think you need to look at that. Do they support that professional development? Do they support you being a leader outside of just within your organization? And then the other piece is, why are they recruiting? Are they recruiting because they've had some massive turnover? And if they've had a lot of turnover, why do they have that turnover? The thing is, if you've built your network, you can ask those questions without doing like the official research their website or whatever. You can ask someone who left, you can ask someone who's engaged with them. So that would be my advice. I just think we're in a world now that culture and fit are more important than pure skill set. Or where someone's been. That's something that we talked about in the Hot Topics team quite a bit, is what's motivating them. Don't be thinking, oh, well, this person's changed jobs a few times. Are they going to stay with me? Get the benefit of them while you can have the benefit of them. Whatever they add to your team is going to stay there. Even when they leave, they're going to change processes. So I would say, don't be afraid of letting someone come and be there for a season, because we all have various seasons in our life. So.
Hey, Tara, your point about fit and kind of the right person that'll work well in a team. That's such a great point. I think we should just expand the definition of talent to include that. There's all the soft skills, all the emotional intelligence is a type of, talent. And so that's what you're looking for too, not just technical brilliance, but you want somebody who's going to show up for work and, dig into details, but can also see the big picture and can also work with people. So let's talk about talent to include all of that.
Well, and I was going to say the other piece that when you first prompted this question, John, it was like, you can leave to find a good organization. If you're in a good organization, you can do certain things. But I also think you can see the leadership, or you can see an organization that's going through change and see the potential, and you can create the culture. So there's a couple different things that you can do. It might be hard, and there might be a lot of work, but if you can see the potential in the team that you're joining and the leadership that you're joining, it might be worth the work to transition from something that may have previously been a negative culture to something that's positive.
Oh, great feedback. And yes, fit is very important. But I have found as an interviewer that sometimes finding fit in an interview isn't as easy as when the person comes on board, right? Because you have to ask the right questions. And if you have someone that's savvy enough, right, they can get in. So yes, fit is very important, but I have found it sometimes to be difficult to make that determination in the interview. But I agree 100%. Ginger, what do you have for us?
Kind of what John said of digging into the details. I often find that sometimes, unfortunately, procurement people are really bad at responding to a job application. They're like a vendor. The vendor's like, yeah, I'm awesome. And you should absolutely hire me or award me or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And they just didn't fill out what they're supposed to completely enough to sell themselves. And so go back to that and think of it in that respect of you're selling yourself, whether in the interview, in the application, and fill it out completely, but not overly so. And that is a big tip for me if you're going to look for another job.
I love that, Ginger. And someone mentioned earlier about mock interviews. If you're a person that hasn't interviewed in a while, it would definitely be advisable to go through some mock interviews, because some things may have changed since the last time that you interviewed, and you, of course, want to put your best foot forward. Charlie, what do you have for us?
Hello. I'll make this very simple. to show me the money. Show me the money. Out.
Okay. Thank you, Charlie. Showing the money. Yes, Don. What do you have? Now that we've shown you the money, are you going to show up?
Yeah, the whole conversation makes me think about some of the stuff I originally looked for when I was hiring somebody. Was basically what was their experience? Could they, could they do the job? And I realized halfway through my career that really what I was looking more for was people with passion, people that wanted to be educated, were hungry for knowledge. Because if somebody is hungry for knowledge and they've got the passion to do that, then they most of the time will be a good worker. I want to find out who their network is. Are they involved in anything, whether it's NIGP or their local chapter, or just where they go to for interface with other people, because those are things that are important in our profession. And if they're not good at that kind of thing, if they're not willing to reach out to others for assistance, then they may not fit into an organization very well. The other thing you talk about, show me the money. Yeah, I agree. There's money involved, but there's also the fact that 3 months after you get hired, that money is just part of your budget. So you've got to find people that love the job and that you like. And that's why I always tell people, when you're interviewing or being interviewed, be 100% honest, be who you are. Because if you go in there and sell yourself as being from example, myself, if I went in someplace and sold myself as being some outgoing, boisterous, shake hands with everybody person, after about 3 months, they'd find out that I really wasn't that way, that I really like to sit in my own desk and, send out emails. And I wouldn't work with those people. They wouldn't like me anymore, and I wouldn't like the job, because it would be asking me to be somebody different every day of my life. You're going to work someplace a long time, so you need to be yourself. Those are my thoughts.
Oh, Don, I love it. Passion and authenticity are two things that you really can't hide well, right? And passion to me is the most important thing. Being passionate about what you're doing, because as Tara said, I can teach you the procurement part, right? So if we have passion, we have authenticity, and we have fit, money is kind of like back there, right? Because the money is going to be the money. But if you're only in it for the money, it's not going to last long. So I agree. I go after the money too, but I have to have all those other things in front of that.
I want to jump in on what Don said, because I'll forget my thought if I don't. But
okay,
I think the money is an element. And so I know Charlie was half joking when he said, show me the money. Like, we do need to pay people what they're worth.
Right.
But I think that authenticity piece is so important in everything that you do. And I know when Kevin and I first started talking about this, that was kind of a piece of it, is especially where all of us are at in our career, you are buying as much as you are selling. And so you need to be yourself for yourself, because trying to force yourself into, like, think of it like a relationship. If you're just in like the love bombing stage of a relationship and you're just trying to make yourself be the person they want you to be, neither of you are going to be happy in the end. And so I think we're at a place in our career that you might think an agency might be great, and you go and you attend the interview, and if you're being authentically you and they are being authentically them, and something just feels off, we're in a really cool spot right now that we don't have to take the offer. So even if you had a great interview, even if everything went really well, but then you walked away and you were like, oh, I would not enjoy that, that's not a failure. If you walk away and they're like, man, Bobby's bright, but I just don't know that she's the right fit for us, that's not a failure. In the end, you're going to spend more time at your job throughout the week than you do with your friends and with your family. So it better be a place that you're comfortable and that you can be yourself.
And on the flip side of that, it's okay to say no to an offer as well. You shouldn't feel compelled because you've gone through multiple interviews and all of those other bells and whistles are sounding good. I think it's important to go with your gut. If your gut is telling you that something is off, go with your gut and don't try to force it, because if you don't, then you'll find yourself out there looking again sooner than you may have expected. So
and
thank you
as
for
those
that.
servant leaders and people pleasers, rejecting someone's really uncomfortable for us.
Mm-hmm.
But rejection and that uncomfort for the day or the week is nothing compared to years of being miserable in a position.
Yeah,
in fact, I know organizations that when a candidate has walked away after you've made a job offer, in the situations that I've been in, it makes the organization reflect and go, oh, well, how come we didn't get that person? What is it about us? So it actually was a constructive thing. It can spark some conversations about what can we do to attract talent.
And it's funny because I did that, and the company did reach out to me and say, what was it about us that made you not want to accept our offer? And it was real simple for me. I just went with my gut. It was just something about it that didn't feel right to me. And you're probably a great organization, but I have to go with that. And there were some things that happened with that organization a little while later. So my gut was right. Kevin, what do you have for us?
You know, I love this discussion because this is where I'm so passionate about, and it's about. I think Don hit it right in the nose. As my mom would always say, the same thing, which is be yourself because somebody else is already taken. And so it is important to be you and authentically you, because you have to be in that environment day in, day out. And you have to be yourself. Otherwise, you're going to be a pretender for years and years. And you're not going to like the place that you're going to be at if you have to be a pretender all the time. And so, but what I wanted to actually touch on as well is that research alone will not get you everything that you need. And it's important that when you're at the interview, that you're paying attention not only to what you're doing, but also to what the other, the interviewers are doing and saying to you, because that's going to show their culture. And is that the culture that you want to be a part of, right? And so it is important that that we are paying close attention not only to what we want to know, but or what they're asking of us, but what we want to know about them. So ask the tough questions. And what's important to you, right? And so they typically will reserve a few minutes at the end of the interview process for you to ask questions. Have those questions ready and ask them those questions. It took me after the offer with one of the agencies, two coffees or two coffee breaks or coffee appointments to actually discuss what were the things that were important to me and if they would support those things, right? Because I don't want to walk into a situation where things aren't being what I expected, because you know we all put a facade of ourselves somewhere out there, but and agencies do the same thing, but inside that it could be very different. And as I think as Tara and others have said, talk to the colleagues, talk to the network to understand that agency. But sometimes it's also nice to talk to the person that's going to be your boss, and that happens during the interview. So ask those tough questions, and hopefully you'll get the information that you need to better understand who you're going to be working for and the organization that you that you show up at.
Oh, excellent points, Kevin. You hit the nail on the head on multiple points there. So thank you for sharing. Linda, what do you have for us?
Well, I'd like to go back to Charlie's comment about show me the money. Because, you know, when you're a young Turk and you're just starting out, you're really primarily interested, at least in my experience, I know I was, for the most part anyway, interested in what's on your paycheck at the end of the week or that pay period, right? But there are other things, the benefits that go with a position. And when you're younger and you're a long way from retirement, you're not thinking about, do I have a pension plan? You're healthy. You may not be thinking about, do I have health care benefits? How much vacation time am I going to get? Is that going to change the more, the number of years of service I have? And quite frankly, my last job change was because I moved to a public entity that had better post-retirement benefits, and that's what I was chasing. So I have the benefit of sitting here with you guys and not have to worry about, how I'm going to support myself after retirement, because I've got that healthy pension plan. So as you know, I'm Canadian, and I don't know of anywhere in Canada where the public sector doesn't have a pension plan that's available to them. They're not all the same by any means, but if that's what you're looking for, think about those sorts of things. Because at the end of the day, when you walk out the door for the final time, that may be some of the considerations that you need to think about. And if you start early, and everybody's talking about it now, start your retirement planning when you start work. That's not necessarily your focus when you're just coming out of school and you're getting your first job and it's like, yay, I can go buy a car. Okay. But the car is going to wear out. You're going to need a new one. And how are you going to fund that later on? So the picture you see behind me is one of the things that my pension supports. I started out in an apartment. Big change. So, if you're thinking long term, which is what we talk about all the time in procurement, strategic planning, that's part of your personal strategic planning and the things you need to consider, in my view.
Thank you, Linda. And I agree. And we mentioned earlier about conducting research. As part of your research, definitely look at what the bennies are, right? It's not just the money, but it's everything else. And the long term is definitely how we look once we mature, right?
and perhaps be prepared to negotiate those.
Yes,
my last job position that I went to, the job offer they initially made me, I said, I can't move for that.
Mm-hmm.
And their next question was, what do you need? And I told them, and they went, okay.
And we're procurement professionals. Shouldn't we be able to negotiate our own? We're not
One
doing
would hope
that.
so.
Yes. Thank you, Linda. Great points. What do you have for us, Brooke?
I just wanted to add on to some of the comments here and speak specifically to new recruits and the importance of networking and having a mentor once you start out. It's important that whether you're a seasoned professional or new to procurement, go to those networking events, whether it's through the chapter or through forum, and meet people that have that same passion and energy as you, so you can call on them when you have difficult questions. I know when I first started out, I called Dave Nash on something that was important to me, and he was able to talk me through it. The mentoring program offered through NIGP, I've gone through that program as well. Make those connections and keep adding resources for you, and then they can see you act as a procurement professional as well, and open up opportunities for you in the long term as well. So I just wanted to add on to that.
Thank you, Brooke. That's a great add-on. And networking in our business is so important because you'll get that procurement that you haven't done before. No one in your office has done it. So where do you go for help? And as an instructor, I always encourage my students to get each other's emails addressed so that they can begin the network with the people that they went through the class with. So yes, thank you for that, Brooke. Tara, what do you have for us?
I actually had to take notes because I was afraid I was going to forget it again. When Linda was talking about, in certain areas, when you first get out of school, it might seem like it's all about the paycheck. I always struggle when we do like large group discussions like this because everybody has different motivators. And so I'm at a season in my career where I am looking at things like, what are the long-term benefits of this position? What are the intrinsic benefits of the position? And I'm not as motivated by money, but there is a dollar figure for everyone that once you're, I'm looking at like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Once your basic needs are met by your pay, then you can start looking more in depth at those intrinsic needs. So again, I know Charlie was just kind of being a smart aleck about show me the money, but I think it's a struggle in public sector that oftentimes we do not pay adequately, or it's definitely not what someone can make in the private sector. So looking at the two sides of the coin again, as the person building my team, I need to do a really good job at communicating what those other benefits are. I need to do a really good job about talking about our support of professional involvement, about professional development, about certification, about wanting to grow them in their career. To Brooke's point, about intentional mentorship and succession planning, because somebody brand new out of college, they're probably not going to care about it as much. But if I'm talking about it, they're going to be like, maybe I should care about this. Someone later in their career, it's going to matter to them more. But also, sometimes it just comes down to basic needs being met. And so one of the things, again, I keep saying when Kevin and I talked about this, I keep thinking like I'm at this unique place in my career that if I were to interview somewhere else, I don't need to take the offer. I keep comparing it to like a buyer's and seller's market. Right now, it is a buyer's market. And as the person who's being interviewed for positions, not actively, in case any of my coworkers aren't listening to this, but as the person who might be interviewed for positions, I don't have to take the job. And I'm now at a point where I actually have the leverage. I can ask the difficult questions. I can say no to offers because I'm not fresh out of high school looking for the job, fresh out of college looking for a job and just saying, I will take any job because I have basic needs that need to be met. Now I can say no, I can be a little bit more selective in what I'm doing. So kind of back to one of the things Kevin said, ask the tough questions, ask the things that matter to you. And it all comes back to that same thing of being authentic. And then the other piece is, because we're always in various seasons, know what matters to you and know why. We actually talk about this a little bit more in depth in the hot topics, this segment. But if you know what it is that's motivating you and why that matters, you're less likely to get stuck. And I always feel bad when we're doing all these kind of advice. Like I feel like we're shooting a lot of people. We're not shooting anyone. Any agency can be a good fit for the right person. You just need to make sure that it aligns with your values and with your current needs. And so some people move around to advance in their career. Some people will stay with the same agency forever because it helps them grow. Some people just want to be the best darn whatever they currently are right now, and they want to coast for the next 5 years. All of that is okay. You know what matters to you.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
sorry,
Very
Bonnie,
well
just to
said.
add on to that, though,
Go
if
ahead.
I may, it's I mean, it's like a marriage, right? When you're going into it, you might have gone through the first marriage, didn't work, second marriage didn't work, third, it might even get you to the fifth one until you find that right person, because it's a combination. You, the people, the boss, the agency, right? And you have to find your right fit, so that you can be your authentic self and be happy in that situation. And so it is, and that's why it's a good idea to just try to be yourself in the process, so that you're not having to pretend to be someone else. And that's the important part. So I think it's okay to move around, but know why you're doing it. So, and by doing that, that's going to get you to a happier place.
I have
So, John,
one little tidbit. Yeah, thanks,
John,
Bobby.
you started
Yeah.
us out, so why don't you wrap us up?
Sure. I think it's good that we can have a bunch of different specific things. I hope you glean stuff out of this conversation. Like one little tidbit I was going to say is either if you're interviewing or if you're on the other side and you're the organization that's bringing someone in, you can talk about things that are important to people. One for me was, what's your support for professional training? Do you have budget to send people off to conferences? Can I be part of my chapter? Will you pay my chapter membership? Can you go off to forum every now and then? That was something that was important to ask. So if you get stumped at that last question where they say, well, what questions do you have for us? You can say, well, talk to me about your support of professional development if it hasn't come up before then. And if you're on the other side, that's maybe a selling point if you have that level of support for professional development. Talk about it. So look for a concrete example of what we mean when we're talking about being authentic and finding the fit. Talk to others. That's a big part of the networking.
Thank you, John. And I would be remiss if I did not allow my colleague Stacy to chime in on the conversation before we wrap up. Stacy, what do you want to end us with?
Well, bless. Thanks, Bobby. No, I think that this conversation has been really wonderful. But one thing that I've loved to incorporate, whether I've been as an interviewer or an interviewee, is around what is the ideal office culture. So as an interviewer, I like to ask the question about if you could create your ideal office culture, what would it be and how would you make this a reality? Because it's real easy to say, well, this is what I want. You know what I mean? But what is your role in that process? Which I think is super helpful. And if I haven't been asked that question as an interviewee, then I will ask it, what is the culture of this organization? And how willing or open to accepting ideas and differences are you? And get their response, because I'll be honest with you, the first time you'll catch people off guard, as if that interviewer is not ready, they don't even know how to answer what is our culture. And that in and of itself lets you in on a little secret, right, that informs your decision. So I think that's helpful in both sides. So that was one of the things that I wanted to just chime in here at the end. But thanks, Bobby.
What a great chime in. I think you summed up everything we've been talking about. And I want to thank our loyal Radio NIGP listeners for joining us today as we talked about loyalty to the profession, recruiting and retaining professionals. Thank you to all of my colleagues here on Radio NIGP. We look forward to you joining us again real soon. Take care. Bye.